Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to wrap up our study of John chapter 9, verses 13 through 41. Jesus healed a blind man. The Pharisees did not like that because it was on the Sabbath, so they bring the man in, hey, who healed you? They bring his parents in. His parents say, hey, don't look at us. Go talk to him. They talk to him again, and he's not the least bit intimidated by these guys, and they end up throwing him out of the synagogue. Now he's no longer a Jew. According to the Pharisees, he's no longer right before God. This all comes down to spiritual blindness and cowardice. And really, the difference between courage and cowardice when it comes to our faith is the question of are you or are you not spiritually blind? Um, this man can see now. Before he couldn't. Now he can. Also, for the first time in his life, he's been thrown out of the synagogue. You think he was okay with that trade? That's the whole key. His parents could see that he was healed, but they missed the significance of their son being healed, and they still clung to that status quo. But their son had found something revolutionary. He was aware of how special it was, and that's what he ran to, and that's what he held on to. He held on to Jesus. Look at verses 35 to 38 now. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Who is he, sir? The man asked. Tell me so that I may believe in him. Jesus said, you have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you. Then the man said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped him. Jesus recognized that this young man that he had healed has what it takes to be a disciple, one of his followers. He's bold. He's smart enough to understand what he has found in Jesus and how much that matters. And he doesn't take any garbage from the Pharisees. Mostly, unlike his parents, he's willing to put what he's found, the truth of Jesus, above status quo, comfort, social acceptance. Look now at verses 39 down to 41. Jesus said, for judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, what, are we blind too? Jesus said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin, but because you claim that you can see, your guilt remains. His parents were blind. The boy's parents were blind. The Pharisees were blind spiritually. God was right there in front of them, restoring sight, doing great things, and they actively chose to pretend they didn't see it. You see, that's a big key. People who are spiritually blind choose to be spiritually blind. They choose to ignore the presence of God. They purposely and actively pretend that what they know to be true really isn't true. Because if they admit it, they might have to change. And that's how spiritual blindness works. There was a group of Pharisees at the time of Jesus, and they were called the blind and bleeding Pharisees. And they got that nickname from the idea that they were so committed to following God that as they're walking down the street, if they saw a woman, well, just looking at a woman might distract you. It might bring bad thoughts into your head. And so what they would do is if they saw a woman, they would close their eyes. Okay? Usually when people close their eyes, they stop walking. Not these guys. These geniuses kept right on walking, and they would bump into trees, houses, other people, what have you. And they were proud of their bruises. They were proud of all the wounds they had from walking into a wall. All right. And you think, well, that sounds a little stupid, but you're wrong. It's not a little stupid, it's massively stupid. But they took pride in this. It's amazing to me how people sometimes take pride in choosing to be spiritually blind. They almost wear their atheism as a badge of pride. Spiritual blindness happens when we pretend Jesus doesn't matter. It's not just atheists. Sometimes it's Christians going, well, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but Jesus understands. Spiritual blindness happens when we pretend Jesus doesn't matter, because if we admit that he is Lord, and that means we have to surrender to him, and that means that we might have to give up some of the things that we cling to, like comfort and status and friends and what those friends think of us and everything else that we're so used to and are so comfortable with. Jesus is calling us on an adventure. He's calling us to a purpose. He's calling us to meaning. He's calling us to be part of his kingdom. He's calling us to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And some people want to pretend that's not happening. And they won't give up what they're familiar with, what they're comfortable with. They won't run the risk of not being well thought of in their circles, so they choose blindness. I want to close by talking about one of my favorite groups when I was a kid, favorite musical groups. It was the band America. Now, if you're of a certain age, you remember America. They had that great song, Sister Golden Hair Surprise. Love that song. They had a whole bunch of others, Ventura Highway. Just Google them on YouTube, and I really enjoyed their music back in the day. Their biggest song was A Horse with No Name. I hate that song. I remember my wife and I years ago, they came to the Deschutes County Fair when we were living up in Oregon, and we got to go see America. And the very last number that they played was Horse with No Name. And we thought, perfect, we can leave now. We can beat the traffic. But I'm talking about America for a reason. America was made up of three guys. And one of the three guys was a man named Dan Peake. If you've ever heard this song, This Is for All the Lonely People, he wrote that and he sings that. Great musician. America was huge. It was such a popular band. They were thought to be the next Beatles. In fact, the Beatles producer, George Martin, became their producer. They were hot. And at the peak of their fame, Dan Peake left. Why? He became a Christian. Okay. And he just realized the drugs and the promiscuity that are associated with being in a band like this is pulling me away from Jesus. People couldn't understand why you would leave a band like that. Christians can, because they understood something about Dan Peake. His eyes were open. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.